Hello there, my name is Payal Naraine and welcome to this video series. यहाँ हम कवर कर रहे हैं पूनम दलाल दहिया की एंशिएंट एंड मेडिवल इंडिया की 3rd एडिशन, जो कि लेटेस्ट एडिशन है। इस किताब को हम थ्रूली रीड करेंगे और जहाँ ज़रूरत पड़ेगी वहाँ हम साथ ही साथ UPSC एंड स्टेट सर्विसेज में आए हुए प्रीवियस ईयर के क्वेश्चंस भी डिस्कस करेंगे। एंड इस सीरीज़ में वीडियोस लगभग 30 to 35 मिनट्स के होंगे, बड़े इफेक्टिव होंगे और हम ऑलमोस्ट 40 to 45 लेक्चर्स में ये पूरी किताब कवर करेंगे। और अगर आपने ये सीरीज़ 3 to 4 टाइम्स देख ली तो बिल्कुल ये किताब आपके दिमाग में छप जाएगी एंड ट्रस्ट मी, आपकी एक्यूरेसी भी काफ़ी इंक्रीज़ हो जाएगी। साथ ही साथ आपका रिवीजन भी काफ़ी आसान हो जाएगा। सो अगर आपको रिवीजन के साथ साथ वैल्यू एडिशन भी करना है तो ये सीरीज़ पूरी फॉलो करें। आपको बस आपके पास ये किताब रखकर मुझे सुनना है एंड मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स मार्क करने हैं। So without any further delay, let's get started. हेलो देयर, वेलकम बैक टू द चैनल घटना सूत्रा। यहाँ हम कवर कर रहे हैं पूनम दलाल दहिया की एंशिएंट एंड मेडिवल इंडिया 3rd एडिशन, जो कि लेटेस्ट एडिशन है। और हम आज शुरू कर रहे हैं विद द टॉपिक ऑफ देवपाला एंड ही इज़ अनदर रूलर ऑफ द पाला डायनेस्टी। सो बिफोर वी मूव अहेड, आप अपनी बुक्स पे इस टॉपिक को स्टार मार्क कर लीजिए क्योंकि BPSC में इसके ऊपर 2018 में सवाल पूछा गया था। ठीक है, सो लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड। देवपाला 1810 to 1850 CE extended the empire to include Pragyajotishpur/Kamrupa, Assam, part of Odisha, Utkala, and modern Nepal. He claimed to have extracted tributes from the whole of northern India, from the Himalayas to the Vindhyas, and from the eastern to the western ocean. His inscription proclaimed his victory over the Huns. The lord of Gurjara, probably Mihir Bhoja, and the Dravidas, preferred Munger to Patliputra, was also a great patron of Buddhism. According to the Buddhist tradition, the Shailendra dynasty king Balaputra Deva, ruler of Swarnadvipa, which corresponds to the Indonesian archipelago, including Malaya, Java, Sumatra, and other neighboring islands, requested him to grant 5 villages to the monastery of Nalanda. He granted the request and appointed Veeradeva as the head of the Nalanda monastery. The court poet was a Buddhist scholar, Vajradatta. So highlight the name of Devapala's court poet, who was also a Buddhist scholar, Vajradatta. So जहाँ पे भी where you see कि किसी कोर्ट पोइट के बारे में बात हो रही है या उन्होंने कोई बुक लिखी है एंड वो कौन से रूलर से रिलेटेड है, ठीक है, आप इन सारी चीज़ों को ध्यान रखिएगा एंड हाईलाइट करिए साथ में आपकी बुक्स में भी। ठीक है। Who is the author of Lokeswara Sataka? Highlight the name of the book too. The Pala Empire was called as Rumi or Ruma Dharma by the Arab merchant Suleiman, who visited India in the middle of 9th century. He claimed that the Pala emperor was at a war with the Pratiharas and Rashtrakutas and had more troops than his adversaries. The power of Pala declined in the late 9th century and Pala control of North India was too ephemeral. As they struggled with the Gurjara Pratiharas and the Rashtrakutas for the control of Kannauj and were defeated, the subordinate ruler of Assam and Odisha assumed independence. Mahipala I, 977 to 1027 CE. After a short-lived decline, the fortunes of Palas were restored under Mahipala I in the late 10th century. He defeated Pala Batsian in Bengal and Bihar against Chola invasion, but was defeated by Rajendra Chola. Ramapala 1072 to 1126 CE. The last strong Pala ruler who gained control of Kamrupa and Kalinga and again revived Pala fortunes in the 11th century. He was mentioned in Sandhyakar Nadi's Ramcharitra. Highlight the name, ठीक है? Sandhyakar's Nandi's Ramcharitra, which describe Kaivarta peasant rebellion. The empire was considerably weakened by the 11th century, with many areas engulfed in rebellion. The Pala power was destroyed by the resurgent Hindu Sena dynasty. The Sena dynasty under Vijayasena dethroned the Pala empire in 12th century, thereby ending the reign of the last major Buddhist power in the subcontinent. So Palas were what? Palas were the major Buddhist power in the subcontinent. The Pala period is considered one of the golden eras in the history of Bengal. The Palas not only brought stability and prosperity to Bengal, which was suffering due to centuries of civil war between warring divisions, but they also advanced the achievement of previous Bengali civilization and created outstanding work of art and architecture. They built great temples and monasteries such as the famous Somapura Mahavihara. So Somapura Mahavihara किसने build किया था? कौन सी डायनेस्टी ने? पाला डायनेस्टी ने. They also patronized the great universities of Nalanda and Vikramshila. और कौन सी universities were patroned by the Palas? University of Nalanda and Vikramshila. In fact, the Proto-Bengali language was developed under the Pala ruler as they laid their basis for the Bengali language, including its first literary work, the Charyapada, which is the collection of mystic Buddhist poems from the Tantric tradition. The writers of Charyapada are called Mahasiddhas, and they were from Bengal, Bihar, Orissa and Assam. The Palas were also astute diplomats and great military conqueror. The Pala army was noted for its vast war elephant cavalries, while the navy performed both mercantile and defensive roles in the Bay of Bengal. The empire enjoyed relations with the Srivijaya Empire, the Tibetan Empire, and the Arab Abbasid Caliphate. Their flourishing mercantile and intellectual contact could be established by Abbasid coinage from found a Pala archaeological site, as well as the record of Arab historians. In fact, as a result of increasing trade between Bengal and the Middle East, Islam appeared in Bengal during the Pala rule. Rashtrakutas. So, before we continue Rashtrakuta के टॉपिक के साथ, आप इस टॉपिक को डबल स्टामा कर लीजिए, क्योंकि इस टॉपिक के ऊपर उत्तराखंड PCS में 2010 में क्वेश्चन आया था, साथ ही साथ UP PCS में 2009 एंड 2008 में, और UP UDA/LDA के एग्जाम में 2010 में इसके ऊपर क्वेश्चन आया था. So double star mark this. Rashtrakutas. The political history of the Deccan between 753 and 975 CE was marked by the rise of Rashtrakutas, who for a long time provided stability to the region. Rashtrakutas means chief of a Rashtra, division or kingdom, depending on the context. Around 625 CE, they appeared to have migrated from the Latur area of Ilichpur near the source of Tapi in modern MP. Since one of the titles used by the king of the main and subordinate lines was Latarlura Puraveshwara, lord of the great city of Latur on the Maharashtra-Karnataka border. They are presumed to be the feudatories of Chalukyas, and their capital was Mankhed or Malkhed. अच्छा, अब whenever we talk about किसी डायनेस्टी के बारे में, तो आपको सबसे ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट क्या चीज़ में ध्यान रखनी होगी कि वो किंगडम कौन से एरिया में एग्जिस्ट था या उस किंगडम का कैपिटल क्या था. ठीक है, क्योंकि इसमें मैच द पेयर्स काफ़ी एग्जामिनेशंस में पूछे जा चुके हैं, स्टेट सर्विसेज एज वेल एज UPSC में पहले. ठीक है, सो व्हेनेवर वी रीड किसी किंगडम के बारे में, यू नीड टू रिमेंबर उनका कैपिटल क्या था. ठीक है. Despite the extensive use of Sanskrit in their inscription, Kannada was their mother tongue and they believed to be of Kannada origin. They achieved spectacular military success in the north and south in the tripartite struggle. They mostly defeated the Palas and the Pratiharas. It is significant to note that although their raids did not result in the extension of Rashtrakuta Empire of the Gangetic Valley, they brought rich plunders and added to the fame of Rashtrakutas. They also constantly fought against the eastern Chalukyas of Vengi, Andhra Pradesh, the Pallavas of Kanchi, and the Pandyas of Madurai. The Arab account testified the liberal attitude of the Rashtrakuta king, as the Arab traders were allowed to build mosques, follow their religion without any hindrance. Danti Durga. 733 to 756 CE, feudatories of the Chalukya king Kirtivarman II, who later founded the Rashtrakuta kingdom by taking control of the northern regions of the Chalukyan Empire and thus extended to the throne in 733 CE. However, the Rashtrakuta as a kingdom rose in the power from 753 CE. So, who founded the Rashtrakuta kingdom? It was Danti Durg. Remember the name of the founders of any of the dynasties. ठीक है? His name Danti Durg, meaning whose elephant is his fortress, also signifies his military feats and accomplishment. In the earliest record of his reign, that is the Ellora inscription of 742 CE, he is mentioned as Prithviva Vallabhi and Kagavaluka, he who glanced as keen as the edge of sword. Taking advantage of the disturbed condition of Lata and the Malwa after the Arab invasion, he took control of these territories. He also attacked Kanchi, the capital of the Pallavas, and struck up alliance with Nandivarman, who gave his daughter Reva in marriage to him. He later also helped his father-in-law, the Pallava king Nandivarman, to regain Kanchi from the Chalukyas, and also defeated the Gurjaras of Malwa and the ruler of Kalinga, Kosla and Srisalam. Krishnaraja I, 756 to 774 CE. Danti Durga's uncle, who extended the throne after the succession battle among different family members, as Danti Durga died childless, mentioned as Shubhatunga, high in prosperity, and Akal Varsha, constant rainer, in Bandak inscription, 772 CE, extended the Rashtrakuta Empire and brought major portion of present-day Karnataka and Konkan under his control. Also gave final blow to the Pallavas. The magnificent rock-cut Kailashnath temple at Ellora near Aurangabad, Maharashtra, was built during his reign. Ab highlight this topic as well कि rock-cut Kailashnath temple at Ellora किनके reign के time बनाया गया था? It was during Krishna Raja I. The temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva and is monolithic, that is made up of one single piece of rock. After his death around 775 CE, a succession battle ensued between his two sons, Govind II and Dhruva, in which eventually Dhruva emerged victorious. Dhruva, 780 to 793 CE. During his reign, the kingdom expanded into an empire that encompasses all of the territory between the Kaveri River and central India. He led successful expeditions to Kannauj, the seat of northern Indian power, where he defeated Gurjara Pratiharas Nagabhatta and the Palas of Bengal, Dharmapala. He also brought the eastern Chalukyas and Gangas of Talakada under his control. The Rashtrakuta became a pan-Indian power during his rule. Govinda III, 793 to 1814 CE. Son of Dhruva, who took the Rashtrakuta to a greater heights. He emerged victorious at the tripartite struggle. He made incursions of North India and defeated Pala king Dharmapala and also wrestled Malwa from Pratihara king Nagabhatta, as mentioned in Sanjan inscription of his reign. The horses of Govinda III drank from the icy water of the Himalayan streams, and his war elephant tasted the sacred water of the Ganges. It is believed that the Rashtrakuta Empire under his reign gradually spread over the areas from Cape Comorin to Kannauj and from Benares to Bharuch. His military exploits have been compared to those of Alexander the Great and Arjuna of Mahabharata. Having conquered Kannauj, Gujarat and Kosla, he travelled south and not only humbled the Pallavas of Kanchi but also installed a ruler of his choice in Vengi and received 2 statues as an act of submission from the king of Ceylon. One statue of the king and another of his minister. The Cholas, the Pandyas and the Cheras all paid him tribute. Amogh Varsha I, 814 to 878 CE. One of the most famous of the Rashtrakutas who built a new capital city, that of Manakhet, modern Malkhed. He defeated the invading eastern Chalukyas at Vingavali and assumed the title of Veeranarayana. Also made peace with the western Gangas by giving them 2 of his daughters in marriage. It is interesting to note that, unlike his father, he preferred to maintain friendly relations with his neighbors, the Gangas, the eastern Chalukyas and the Pallavas, with whom he also cultivated marital ties. He was a patron of literature and was an accomplished scholar in Kannada, Sanskrit himself. He wrote Kavi Rajamarga. Highlight the name, ठीक है? अब अमोघ वर्षा ने कौन सी बुक्स लिखी थी? He was a ruler of which dynasty? Of Rashtrakutas. और उन्होंने कौन सी बुक लिखी थी? Kavi Rajmarga, and he was also an accomplished scholar in Kannada and Sanskrit. The earliest Kannada work on poetics and Prashannattara Ratna Malika in Sanskrit. These books were written by Amogh Varsha. which is considered as a writing of high merit and was later translated into a Tibetan language. Because of his religious temperament, his interest in the art and literature, and his peace-loving nature, he is often compared to Emperor Ashoka and called Ashoka of the South, and is also compared to Gupta king Vikramaditya in giving patronage to the men of letters. He was a follower of Jainism and Jinasena, the author of Adipurana and Prasava Buddhaya was his chief preceptor. He also patronized many Jain scholars. Krishna II, 879 to 914 CE, was not wholly successful in curbing religious rebellions, and only succeed in his reign was the termination of Lata viceroyalty. His expedition against Vengi and Chilis resulted in only disgrace and disaster, and even exile for some time. Indra III, 914 to 929 CE, grandson of Amogvarsha, who crushed the different rebellions and re-established the empire. He defeated Pratihara's Mahipala I and sacked Kannauj in 1950 CE and emerged as the most powerful ruler of his time. Krishna III, 939 to 967 CE, the last great Rashtrakuta rulers who consolidated the empire so that it stretched from the Narmada river to Kaveri river and included the northern Tamil country, Tondai Mandalam, while leaving tribute on the king of Ceylon. He was engaged in struggle against the Parmaras of Malwa and the eastern Chalukyas of Vengi. In about 949 CE, he also defeated the Chola king Prantaka I and annexed the northern part of the Chola Empire. He then marched towards Rameshwaram and set up a pillar of victory there and also built a temple. During his reign, Trivikrama composed Nala Champu. Highlight the name of the writers or who wrote a specific book. And Hala Yuddha wrote Kavi Rahasya. Highlight the name of the writers. आपको जहाँ पे भी writers दिखे या उन्होंने कौन सी book लिखी है and specification regarding those books. So highlight it. So आपको next revision में it will be easy. After his death, all his opponents united against his successor in 1972 CE, sacked the Rashtrakuta capital Malkhed and burned it to ashes. This marks the end of the Rashtrakutas. Rashtrakuta rule lasted in the Deccan for almost 200 years till the end of the 10th century. They were tolerant in their religious views and patronized not only Shivaism, Vaishnavism, but Jainism as well. The Rashtrakuta not only allowed Muslim traders to settle but also permitted Islam to be preached in their dominions. They are credited with the construction of famous rock-cut temple of Shiva at Ellora. The sculpture art of Rashtrakuta reached its zenith in Elephanta Caves. So हम किस dynasty को credit देंगे for the construction of rock-cut temple of Shiva at Ellora? It will be Rashtrakutas. ठीक है? Highlight this. They were also great patrons of art and letters. Their courts were adorned by not only Sanskrit scholars but also poets and authors who wrote in Prakrit and in Apabrahmasha language. The great Apabrahmasha poet Swayambhu and his son probably lived at the Rashtrakuta court. Along with them, Satkayana, who wrote the grammar work called Amogavariti. Highlight the name of the writer and the work done by them. Okay? The great mathematician Veeracharya authored Ganita Saram. Highlight this too. Okay? Two flourished under the patronage of the Rashtrakutas. The Kannada literature saw its beginning during the period of Rashtrakutas. Pampa, the greatest of the Kannada poet, wrote Vikram Sena Vijaya, while Punna was a famous Kannada poet who wrote Shanti Purana. So highlight the name of the poet, है ना, और उनके साथ में उन्होंने जो भी काम किया है या जो भी book लिखी गई है उनसे related. Highlight this. Because इससे related आपको examination में questions आ सकते हैं. ठीक है? General overview of life during these three kingdoms. The administration was run on similar pattern as that of Guptas, the Pushabhutis and the Chalukyas in the Deccan. The king was the epitome of all affairs and was not only the head of the administration but also commander-in-chief of the armed force. The court was not only a center of cultural affairs of justice, but of cultural life as well. The ladies of the king's darbar also attended the darbar on the festive occasion. According to the Arab writers, they did not veil their faces. King's position was hereditary, and normally the eldest son succeed the father, but the succession rules were not so rigid. Princes were mostly appointed as the provincial governors, and in some rare cases, princes were also appointed to government posts. For instance, a Rashtrakuta princess, Chandro Balabai, daughter of Amogh Varsha I, administered the Raichur Doab for some time. The kings were generally advised by ministers who were chosen from the leading families, and their position was more or less hereditary. As in the case of Pala king, the Brahmana family supplied 4 successive chief ministers to Dharmapala and his successors. From epigraphic and literary records, it appears that almost every kingdom had a minister of foreign affairs, revenue, treasurer, senapati, chief justice, and purohit. All the ministers except the purohit were expected to lead military campaigns when called upon to do so. All 3 kingdoms had large and well-organized infantry and cavalry and large number of war elephants. The Pala had the largest number of elephants. The Pratihara had the finest cavalry, while the Rashtrakutas had a large number of forts, which were garrisoned by special troops and had their own independent commanders. The infantry consisted of both regular and irregular troops and of levies supplied by the vassal chief. The war were frequent between kings and their vassals, also known as samantas. For instance, the Rashtrakuta had to constantly fight against the vassal chiefs of Vengi and Karnataka. Similarly, the Pratihara had to constantly fight against the Parmaras of Malwa and the Chandelas of Bundelkhand. The vassal ruled autonomously over the areas and were bound by the great obligation of loyalty, paying a fixed tribute, supplying a quota of troops, and were required to fight along with the king in time of need or for an attack. Sometimes, a son of the vassal chief would require to stay in attendance of the overlord to guard against any rebellion, or at times they had to marry one of their daughters to the overlord or to one of his sons. The Palas and the Rashtrakutas have their own navies, but more details are not known. The direct administered territories were divided into Rashtras under the supervision of Rashtrapati or governor. Bhukati, provinces, under the supervision of Uparika. So highlight this. Bhukti जो है वो किसके supervision के अंडर में थी? Uparikas के. And who were they? They were the who was expected to collect land revenue and maintain law and order. Mandala or Vishya district. Who head was called as Vishyapatis and was expected to perform the function of collection of revenues and maintaining the law and order at a district level. अब आप अपनी बुक्स में भी इन स्पेसिफिक टॉपिक्स को हाईलाइट करिए एंड उनके चीफ्स को क्या बुलाया जाता था, हाईलाइट दैट टू, और उन्होंने कौन से काम किए, मतलब हाउ इट्स रिलेटेड टू दैट स्पेसिफिक वर्क. ठीक है. एंड ऑर्डर एट अ डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल. पताला, much smaller unit of clusters of villages which were headed by Bhojapati. Village headed by village headmen and village accountant whose posts were generally hereditary. He was often assisted by village elders called Grama Mahajana or Grama Mahatara. In certain villages, there were village committees for managing local schools, tanks, temples, roads, and also settling simple disputes. These sub-committees worked in a close cooperation with the village headmen and received a percentage of the revenue collection. Similarly, committees were also present in towns which had the participation of the head of the trade guilds too. The law and order in the towns was the responsibility of the Koshapala or Kotwal. ठीक है. अब यहाँ पे हाईलाइट दिस कोतवाल क्योंकि इनके अंदर क्या था, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थी. सो हाईलाइट द नेम्स. It is noteworthy to add that almost all the officials were paid by giving them grants of rent-free lands, and it also led to the rise of hereditary revenue officers called Nad Guvandus or Disag Ramakuttas. Later, they were addressed as Deshmukhs and Deshpande in Maharashtra. The revenue assignment, called bhoga or fief, granted by the rulers to his officers were temporary in theory and were liable to be resumed whenever the ruler wanted. But this was rarely practiced, except in the case of outright rebellion and or disloyalty. Subsequently, with the rise of power of these hereditary officials, the village communities became weaker, and subsequently the control and authority of the king were over these officials also diminished. Thus, the government became feudalized. The growth of feudal society had far-reaching effect, as it has not only weakened the position of the ruler, making him more dependent on the feudal chiefs, but also resulted in decline of trade and encouraged an economy in which small principalities emerged, having largely self-sufficient villages. However, in the age of disorder and violence, these feudal states could also provide safety of life and property to the common folks. In terms of religion, most of the kings were tolerant in their views and behavior and generously patronized the Hinduism. Some were devotee followers of Shiva or Vishnu, Buddhism or Jainism. Muslims were welcome and allowed to propagate their faith by the Rashtrakuta kings. The kings, like those of the earlier times, were considered upholders of social hierarchy, and generally the Chaturvarna system continued. However, the state was essentially secular, and as the politics and religion were in essence kept apart, and king was not dominated by the religious discourse. Trade and commerce. In northern India, the period from 750 to 1000 CE was considered to be the period of stagnation and even of decline in terms of trade and commerce. This was primarily due to the collapse of Roman Empire, with which earlier India has flourishing trade relations. Also, the decline of Sassanid Empire, Iranian, due to the rise of Islam, affected India's overland foreign trade. Since the wealth in gold and silver of India was more due to Indian favorable foreign trade, hence, with the decline in foreign trade, there arose a paucity of gold coins in northern India between the 8th and the 10th century. Interestingly, the trade between the South India and the countries of the Southeast Asia increased during this period. Interestingly, the decline in trade and commerce was also reflected in some of the Dharmashastras written during this period, wherein a ban was imposed on travel beyond the areas where the munja grass does not grow or where the black gazelle does not roam outside India. Travel across the salt sea was also considered polluting. Presumably, the ban was meant to discourage Indians from going to area dominated by Islam in the west and Buddhism in the east, so that the Brahmana stronghold was maintained. However, this ban was not taken that seriously by Indians, as there are a lot of accounts of Indian merchants, philosophers and medical men and craftsmen visiting Baghdad and other Muslim towns in the West Asia during this period. Gradually, from 10th century onwards, foreign trade and commerce was revived with the emergence of extensive Arab Empire in the West Asia and North Africa. The demand of Indian fabric, incense and spices among the wealthy Arab ruler rejuvenated the trade again, and Malwa and Gujarat emerged as a major trade center. The Salama dynasty of Assam, 800 to 1000 CE. Assam, also known as Kamrupa or Pragya Jyotish, remained under the authority of the Palas, especially Devapala. However, in 800 CE, a local ruler of Kamrupa named Harjaru Varman declared independence from the Pala and established the Salamba dynasty, having capital at Hurupeshwara on the bank of the river Brahmaputra, Lohitya. Eastern Gangas of the Odisha. In the late 6th century CE, the Shalodabhavas, who were earliest subordinate of Shashanka, gradually asserted their authority over Kongora, which covers modern Puri and Ganjam district. However, in the 8th century, the Shalodabhavas were replaced by the Gangas of Shvetaka, who were originally migrant from Karnataka and established themselves in the northern Ganjam area. Similarly, the Gangas of the Kalinganagra were also migrated from Karnataka, who moved into Orissa towards the end of the 5th century and established themselves in South Orissa, specifically in Vamsadra and Nagavali Valley. From the 10th century onwards, the Ganga kingdom rapidly expanded, and the north and the south Odisha were also unified. Probably their alliance with the Cholas also aided in their military expansion. And in the early 12th century, the Ganga king Anantavarman Chodaganga displaced the Somavanshi ruler from the Lower Odisha. Interestingly, the mother and one of the queens of Anantavarman were a Chola princess. However, military conflict also used to happen between the Gangas and the Cholas, as evident from the fact that Chola king Koluthunga I twice sent military expedition against the Kalinga. So that's all for the day. So in the next chapter, we'll start with the period from 850 to 1200 CE, southern India. So keep on watching Ghatna Sutra. See you next time.